What would you do if kindness was the only reason you survived a brutal attack in a foreign country? And have you been robbed of your valuables and hurt? This is the true crime survival story of a Chinese traveler who came to the United States chasing adventure and nearly lost his life in a city that never sleeps. Li Wei had dreamed of this trip for years. At 34, he had saved carefully, planned meticulously, and finally booked a 2-week vacation to the United States. His itinerary centered around one of the busiest and most iconic cities in the country, a place known for bright lights, constant movement, and endless opportunity. He checked into a mid-range hotel in a crowded downtown area. The lobby buzzed with tourists dragging suitcases, business travelers glued to their phones, and staff moving quickly behind the desk. To Li Wei, it felt exciting, alive. This was day 1. For the first 2 days, Li Wei did what millions of visitors do. He walked. He explored. He got lost on purpose. He took photos of towering buildings, ate street food recommended by strangers, and wandered neighborhoods that looked nothing like the travel brochures. He relied on public transport and his phone's GPS, often staying out late just to watch the city change after dark. On the second night, he stopped to buy food from a small corner stand. As he waited, he noticed a homeless man sitting nearby, thin, wrapped in layers of torn clothing, holding a cardboard sign with barely legible writing. Li Wei hesitated. Then he reached into his pocket and handed the man a folded bill. It was more money than the man was used to seeing. The beggar stared at it in disbelief. "Thank you," he whispered. Li Wei nodded, smiled politely, and walked away, never expecting that moment to matter again. Have you ever helped someone thinking nothing of it, only to later realize it changed everything? Tell me in the comments if you believe small acts of kindness really come back, or if you think that's just a saying. Because for Li Wei, that moment would become the reason he survived. By the 3rd day, Li Wei felt confident. Too confident. That evening, he decided to explore a nightlife district several blocks away from his hotel. The streets were crowded, loud, and alive. Music spilled from bars. Neon signs reflected off wet pavement. At some point, he never remembered exactly when, Li Wei took a wrong turn. The crowd thinned. The noise faded. The lights dimmed. He checked his phone. The GPS lagged. Then someone bumped into him. Before he could react, hands grabbed his backpack strap. Another figure appeared. Then another. Witnesses later described seeing a brief struggle, quick, chaotic, and easy to miss. Li Wei was pushed to the ground. His phone was ripped from his hand. His wallet torn from his pocket. His backpack yanked away. He tried to shout, but the blows came fast. Disorienting. Relentless. The attackers didn't stay long. They never do. When it was over, Li Wei lay motionless on the pavement, bleeding, barely conscious, his body broken in ways he wouldn't fully understand until much later. And then, silence. Hours passed. Cars drove by. People walked past. Some slowed. No one stopped. Li Wei drifted in and out of awareness, his vision blurred, his body refusing to respond. He couldn't stand. Couldn't scream. Couldn't even lift his head. At some point, rain began to fall. Cold, steady, soaking through his clothes. If you saw someone lying still on a sidewalk in a big city, would you stop? Or would you assume someone else already had? Be honest in the comments. Because that assumption nearly cost Li Wei his life. Early that morning, the same homeless man Li Wei had helped 2 nights earlier was making his usual rounds. He moved slowly, scanning the streets for bottles, spare change, anything left behind. That's when he noticed the body. At first, he thought it was another person sleeping rough. Then he saw the blood. Then the face. The man froze. He recognized the traveler immediately, not because of his face alone, but because of the jacket. the same jacket worn by the man who had shown him unexpected kindness. The homeless man rushed forward, kneeling beside him. "He's alive!" he shouted. No response. He screamed louder. He flagged down passing cars. He banged on storefront doors. He refused to leave. Eventually, someone called emergency services. Paramedics arrived to find Li Wei barely breathing, suffering from multiple injuries, dehydration, and exposure. Doctors later said if help had arrived even 30 minutes later, the outcome could have been very different. As Li Wei was loaded into the ambulance, the homeless man stood back, shaking, soaked, and silent. He never followed. He never asked for thanks. He simply watched as the man he had met briefly disappeared behind closing doors. Li Wei woke up in a hospital bed surrounded by machines he didn't recognize and voices he couldn't understand. He had no phone, no passport, no money, only fragments of memory. Police visited later that day, explaining what they believed had happened. Surveillance footage was limited. The attackers were never clearly identified. It was classified as a violent robbery. Another statistic. Another case. Except Li Wei was alive. When an interpreter finally arrived, Li Wei asked one question. "Who found me?" The answer broke him. By the time Li Wei was stable enough to speak clearly, the case had already moved from a routine street robbery to a priority investigation. What initially looked like another violent assault in a busy city was now something else entirely, because the victim had survived long enough to identify patterns, timelines, and locations. And because someone else had seen what happened. Detectives assigned to the case began by retracing Li Wei's final movements before the attack. Hotel surveillance footage showed him leaving around 9:40 p.m., dressed casually, carrying a small backpack. Footage from nearby streets placed him moving toward a nightlife district known for bars, clubs, and late-night foot traffic. Then the trail went dark. No cameras directly covered the narrow side street where Li Wei was attacked. That street, investigators would later learn, was known locally as a shortcut. And shortcuts in big cities are where rules change. As detectives reviewed similar cases from the past 6 months, they noticed a disturbing pattern. Victims were often tourists or first-time visitors. Attacks happened between 9:30 p.m. and midnight. Robberies were fast, coordinated, and violent. The same general area appeared repeatedly. This wasn't random. It was organized. A small street gang had learned where visitors walked, where cameras were scarce, and how long they could act before disappearing back into the city. But knowing that wasn't enough. They needed a face. 3 days after the attack, police received an unexpected call. A bartender named Ethan Miller, who worked late shifts at a downtown bar, asked to speak with detectives. He was hesitant at first, nervous about retaliation, but eventually agreed to give a statement. On the night Li Wei was attacked, Ethan had been running late for work. To make up time, he drove through the same side street, a shortcut he had used dozens of times before. That night, something felt wrong. As he turned the corner, his headlights caught movement. 3 men. One crouched near someone on the ground. Another standing lookout. The third rifling through a bag. Ethan didn't stop. He didn't slow down. He accelerated. He later told police that one of the men looked directly at him, clear enough for recognition. It was someone he had seen before. Someone who drank at his bar. Ethan described the man carefully. Height, build, clothing style, and most importantly, a distinctive tattoo on the side of his neck. Detectives cross-referenced the description with known individuals connected to prior incidents near the bar district. It didn't take long. The man already had a record and a name. Police moved quickly. 2 nights later, officers arrested the suspect outside a convenience store just after midnight. He didn't resist. He didn't deny being there. He just didn't expect someone to have seen him. At first, he claimed he was only standing nearby. Then he said he didn't touch the victim. Then he asked for a lawyer. But the evidence stacked up. Cell phone location data placed him at the scene. Witness testimony from the bartender placed him actively involved. Recovered surveillance footage showed him entering and leaving the area with the same group. Faced with the reality of a long sentence, the man made a choice. He talked. Within days, police arrested 2 more members of the group. One was already known for violent offenses. The other had no prior record, but plenty of street connections. The man Ethan identified became the key witness against them. He explained how they targeted tourists, how they divided stolen items, and how they avoided detection. He admitted they never expected Li Wei to survive. They had assumed the city would take care of the rest. Police searched apartments, cars, and storage units connected to the suspects. Most of Li Wei's stolen cash was gone. Spent. His phone had been sold within hours of the attack. But 2 things were found. His passport, discarded in a trash bag after they realized it had no resale value. And his necklace. A small piece of jewelry Li Wei had worn since his 20s. Those were returned to him personally by a detective at the hospital. Li Wei held them in his hands for a long time without speaking. Before Li Wei was discharged, he asked again about the homeless man who found him. Police didn't have a name, but social workers eventually helped locate him. When Li Wei saw him again, cleaned up, standing awkwardly in borrowed clothes, he broke down. There were no dramatic speeches, just silence and tears. Li Wei thanked him through an interpreter. The man shrugged. "You helped me first," he said quietly. Li Wei returned home weeks later. Physically healed. Mentally shattered. He struggled with sleep. With crowds. With loud noises. The feeling of pavement under his hands haunted him. So did the memory of people walking past. He refused interviews. He avoided news. And he made a decision that shocked his family. He would never travel again. Not internationally. Not alone. Maybe not at all. The world no longer felt like a place of adventure. It felt unpredictable. Hostile. The case eventually went to court. 2 of the attackers received lengthy prison sentences. The third, who cooperated, received a reduced sentence. The bartender testified. So did Li Wei briefly, through video link. He spoke softly, clearly. He didn't ask for revenge. He just told the truth. Li Wei returned to work months later, but he was different. Quieter. More withdrawn. He avoided nighttime outings. He avoided strangers. But he never forgot the man who saved him. Every year since, Li Wei donates to outreach programs for the homeless. Quietly, without publicity. Because he knows something now. Survival doesn't always come from strength. Sometimes, it comes from kindness remembered. Li Wei lost his sense of safety that night. He lost his freedom to wander. But he didn't lose his life. And that is because someone the world ignored refused to look. But if you want more true crime survival stories that reveal how ordinary moments can decide life or death, subscribe to this channel. More stories are coming.